Judgment. I'll say for myself, judgment has certainly been challenging to give up or try to transcend. But it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. We talk a lot about sort of the idea of like the spiral staircase. And as we grow, we are kind of faced with the same things over and over until we like can fully learn to kind of handle them and transcend them and grow through them and learn the lessons. And judgment, I guess, is just kind of coming up for me again a lot. I just maybe just seeing it from a new perspective. I recently listened to David Hawkins's book, Power versus Force, for probably the third time, but it had been a while since I had listened to it. And it's just such an incredible book. And it's like every chapter almost like, as I listen to it again now for the third time, it's like every time it's like, oh, that's it. Okay, I get that. Okay. And it's just like kind of mind blowing, like all over again. It's like blowing my mind for the third time. And one of the things that he talks about a lot in that book is sort of the different levels of consciousness have their own attractor fields. And it is sort of like this, describe it as like a radio signal that you can kind of tune into at different levels. As he's talking about these in one of the chapters, he talks about as you're developing spiritually, there's this idea of entrainment, where I guess kind of another analogy would be like the big pendulum. So if you have a room full of grandfather clocks and you went through and kind of swung the pendulum on all of them at different times, and you came back the next day or came back however long it takes, they would all sync up, and they would sync up to like the biggest energy in the room, the largest pendulum, and they kind of sync up. And this is something that can be really beneficial, he talks about in the book, for people on like a spiritual journey who go and work with a guru or something like that. When you spend time with somebody who's at a really high level, you kind of level up in frequency and align with that. And as long as you're in their presence, you can hold that higher frequency. And then when you leave, a lot of people will go spend a bunch of time with someone and then they leave and go back to like regular life and their frequency kind of drops back down.
Yeah.
And it can be really frustrating, but it's a good way to kind of get that peak experience, see what's possible. And then it's the going back is a necessary part of the integration, where your frequency kind of lowers a little bit, but then you can kind of put the pieces together so that you can raise it like your own, or bring your own frequency up to match that or get closer to it. But what he talks about, what has really stuck out for me lately, is that it also goes the other way. And you can be around kind of low energy people or low energy situations, and it will pull your frequency down. So this is why I've been thinking about judgment a lot, because judgment is something that I do. I want to say like I did. I've gotten better at it, and I'm a lot less judgmental, and I find myself judging a lot less, but still doing it, where it's like it's a constant thing. It's something we do really quickly, and then we do subconsciously. Like almost every situation you walk into, you start judging things. I want to say it's like a part of being a human, but it's very much a part of like having an ego.
Yeah.
But I think of judgment, whether it's good or bad, whether like you're judging somebody and like putting them down, or even if you're putting someone on a pedestal, in order to do that, you have to put yourself down. So in either way, when you're judging a situation or a thing or a person, it's kind of like a low vibrational frequency that you're attaching yourself to. So it's a long-winded way of saying that I've been kind of really trying to pay attention to my energy lately and noticing like, oh, I am engaging in and attaching to these sort of like lower level energies of judgment and catching myself in it more often so that I can transcend that and raise my vibration and kind of stay and maintain that higher level of vibration. So that's why I've been thinking a lot about judgment, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay. I have listened to Power and Force before, but it's been a really long time. And when I say listen, it just through the audio book. I need to listen to it again. I agree. I am getting better at judgment as well, but I do it every day. I do believe it's a big part of the human experience because it is the ego who's typically judging, and through the ego's point of view, it wants us to believe that we're all separate. So we judge others for what we've suppressed inside of us. And it's still tricky to really figure out, what you're suppressing within yourself when you are judging another person and you're unaware of it. I loved to judge everyone and everything pretty much my whole life up until maybe 4 years ago, because the judgment allowed me to stay safe. It kept me confined in the bubble of not taking responsibility. And not taking responsibility for fully showing up for who I wanted and want to be. Because a lot of the time we're judging other people, whether it be, how they look, what their job is, status, the cars that they drive, how much money they have. It's like, I'm judging this person for driving this really nice car. Like, like this asshole, like, why, they're not being good for the environment. It's like, no, all I want really is to drive like a really nice car. But because my friends and family know me as this like eco-friendly person, and I'm not saying that this is actually me, I'm just giving an example. It's hard for me. Like I'm suppressing. That's what I mean. I'm suppressing actually like saying, wow, what I value in life, this person has. And instead of judging them, like, how can I get there? Like, judgment is such a huge teacher.
Yes.
And we'll get into that. But we're not aware that it's really trying to teach us to transcend.
Yeah. I think for the most part, like, we're not even aware we're doing it. You walk into a situation and it's so fast how quickly you judge everything. It's like that's too nice, that's not nice enough, that's ugly, that's broken, that why would anyone get that? Like, what's wrong with this person? They're so stupid, they're so smart. Like, and it's like an instant thing that we kind of like assume is true. Like we all, like, nobody thinks that the way that they're judging is wrong. I don't think. And I know that I never did. Like, I would walk into a place and be like, okay, that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong. And my opinion is clearly the truth. But everybody's doing that. So it becomes this mess of like, I don't even know, like, of judgment.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I have, and I guess I still am working on it to this day, and I find myself having to either explain or over apologize, is because you also fear judgment from other people. And that fear of judgment from other people is really what you're judging within yourself. So the reason why I bring this up is because this was a light bulb moment in Costa Rica, actually, for me. I was, you were not there, actually. It was during your one-on-one session, and it was actually just women present. I can't remember exactly what we were talking about. I really do not want to bring up a conversation because I respect everybody's privacy and the details that were spoken. But this is like what I said. But I've always been fearful of people judging me for not wanting to have kids.
Okay.
Like, you're a woman. Like, this is what you're here for. Like, to give birth, to bring life into the world, like to continue the race, to continue the evolution, and to help I fully believe that, like, I do, like, where women are the bearers of, like, we're the
Right.
ones bringing life in. And there's just, I can't explain it other than there's not a bone in my body that feels the need or want to have a child. And in the back of my mind right now, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what are the listeners going to think? And it's really, this is why we have the
Right.
podcast and the show. And I still have a wound here that I need to work through. I think a big part of the judgment that I am placing on others is really the judgment that I'm placing on myself, because I just explained it on camera and on tape right now, that that's the internal dialogue that I have in my head. I do believe it's a societal projection and family, like my family, like motherhood is just huge within my family and the lineage and caregivers, and like, this is your job. Like, but when I was speaking about it, I was being very candid in Costa Rica, because I feel the need to also, like, apologize. Like, I'm sorry, like, I just have to say, like, I do not want to be a mother. Like, there's just not, like I was saying, not a bone in my body. And someone said, Elise, I just want to say, not everybody who's a mother wanted to be one. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was really deep, and I was like, okay, like, I feel like I'm over
obvious, but
yeah, it's like what they need in that time frame and whatnot. And I felt almost like a release too, like an, okay, like, I'm judging myself because I think others are gonna judge me, but maybe they're secretly like, wow, look at Elisa's perspective on this, and it's much lighter of a view than the pounding of, when are you getting married, when are you having kids, when are you going to start a family.
I think that kind of points to the bigger picture of, like, the idea that all judgment in the end is self-judgment.
Yes,
which is exactly where you're going, and like what you were saying. And that kind of works on a few different levels. So, like, what you just said, it's like the fear of judgment from other people it's kind of like obvious to see that, like, okay, if you really think about it, it's like, okay, well, where are those ideas coming from? They're not coming from those people. They didn't tell me that. I'm assuming they're thinking that because I'm thinking, which, like, it can still be hard to accept, even especially if you're not honest with yourself.
Yes.
Which is like, that's basically what it is. This is how your subconscious responds, I get. Like, when you're not being honest with yourself about something and you need to hear it, you'll kind of give it to yourself in another way so you can face it. So it'll be like, oh, well, that person probably thinks that I'm being selfish right now. It's like, well, why would they think that if the thought of being selfish never crossed your mind?
Exactly. I think that you hit it right on the head, because judgment of any kind, really, whether you're judging yourself, others, like you said, putting other people on a pedestal that is judging them in that way, it does require you to look inward, look inside. Like, that judgment is coming from a wound, a place, a trauma, a suppression, a thought that turned into a belief. And when you begin to look inward and start asking those deeper questions of, where is this coming from? Why am I judging? How did this come about? Then you're starting to break down the patterns that got you the judgment in the first place, which requires the ego to really, like, oh shit. It's like your ego being like, oh shit, wait a minute. They're beginning to uncover that I'm doing this judgment, and there's a change that might ensue. And if that change happens, it's dissolving that portion of the ego's role with judging that specific thing. And the ego doesn't want you to integrate that, because then it's losing a little bit more of its power and its ability to keep you in that separation mentality.
And, like, judgment and separation are so closely tied and like interconnected, or like without separation or the idea of separation, there is no judgment.
Right.
Because it's all just one, and it is just exactly what it is. This reminds me of listening to like Dr. John DeMartini speak. And in one of his books, he also mentions it, where it was basically
excuse me,
his response, or like the way that he was able to stop judging people and judging himself. He says he sat down with a dictionary and he went through and found every word that described a human like behavior or characteristic. And then he thought of somebody who matches it and like who's a good like archetype of that. And then he said to take it further, he sat and thought about each one and was like, okay, well, where in my life am I that?
Wow, what a huge undertaking.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it was like, he said, I think it's like 4,000 something words. Like he's incredible, but he was able to go through, and it's like every word that describes any part of human behavior or basically any judgment anything you would judge someone for. He sat down and was like, oh, okay, well, I did that like in that relationship, in that experience, in that situation, I did that. Like, so, because every one of us, you can sit there and be like, okay, I've been manipulative, I've been sneaky, I've been mean, I've taken advantage of people, I've been selfish, I've been really generous, I've been really loving, I've been really giving, and it's like there's at some point in our life, there's a time when we did it. And it's not always the most extreme thing, but we're that. And we're everything. So our ego or our subconscious or whatever you want to say is like equipped to judge it because it knows it. Because if you spot it, you've got it. We only recognize what we understand. Like you can't see something that you don't know or haven't experienced and know what it is.
Yeah.
So when you see someone like, oh, that guy's an asshole, it's because asshole is in you and you've experienced being an asshole.
Yeah. We all have this. It's not,
of course.
We're really not trying to point fingers and blame here. It's just we're trying to help bring the awareness, because life would be so much more accepting.
Yeah.
It really would be. Like, yes, I will first, I would be the first person to raise my hand. I was the most judgmental person ever. I had this conversation with someone over the summer. Like, he was like, you were so judgmental, like everything about you. But he gave me the nicest compliment. He's like, but I've known you for 20 years and I see the way that you're changing and you aren't that same person anymore. And obviously 20-year span is a long time. And I appreciated that, because we've also talked on the podcast, like, do people actually see me change? And it was very reassuring, because I know I've changed and that's all I care about. I mean, people who still perceive me in that light, that's all right. That's certainly on them. I'm going to bring up a really good example here, and I think it's going to trigger a lot of people.
Okay.
But it's the most beautiful example of judgment if you can grasp it and become aware of it. I'm
so curious.
Donald Trump.
Oh yeah.
Because there's someone in our lives that I would say I'm going to use the word despises him. Every time that we're with this person, they bring him up in conversation with something that they're judging, that's triggering them. And I have tried, and I think we both have tried to explain, your view of Donald Trump and your triggers and judgments right now, like, just take a step back and maybe realize that they're within you. It's not meaning that this person like was very harsh towards women or like had any like political ties. It's just, you have to be discerning with really uncovering the judgment that you're making in that moment, to say like, all right, wait, I'm judging in this factor. what is it in me that I see in him? Because it's very closely, it doesn't have to be the exact thing, because people, that's a cop out. People be like, well, I never did that. I would never do that. Again, it's like you have to, it has to be a little bit, you've got to uncover and dig a little bit, but what you're seeing within this person, Donald Trump is a good example. I'm sorry, like he is a punching bag for America. Like even people who love Donald Trump will say, but I hate this about him. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that is controversial, but he's a great example. He triggers a lot of people, and his the things that he says on social media and all these things. And it's like, we're also like, it's not 1950 anymore. Like America, the United States of America elected him as our president. Like, what the fuck does that have to say about people? Like, why is everybody so mad? Like, the majority of the people wanted him as president, and everybody's so mad about it. I mean, I know he hasn't been president for quite some time, but he's also running again. It's it's so interesting, and I love watching and observing people get so triggered and judged. But you do have to have the level of awareness to understand that you're judging him, because it's within you. And you also have to have the level of consciousness to transcend that judgment. We really do have to almost bring it back to exactly like you were saying in Power versus Force. The level of consciousness has to be at a certain number for you to be aware and to work through it. Because if you're not consciously aware of it, you're just going to perpetuate and repeat these patterns of judgment. It's going to come up, whether it be with, Donald Trump or someone else. You're going to judge people very similarly.
Yeah, I think like that is a really good example, because everybody like feels something when you talk about that guy. And it's like, and it's really, really hard to have a conversation even about politics in general without him coming up, because you can be like, oh, well, I feel, one way about something. I was like, oh, so you're a Trump supporter, or it's like, yeah, like it's his fault. And it's like, everything gets turned into him and he's the bad guy. And it is literally like everybody has had for the last 7 years this guy to just dump their shit on, whether you love him or hate him. It's like, oh, narcissist, like, oh, that guy just says whatever he wants, oh, he's spoiled. Like, okay, now think about the thing that you said about him and where you are judging yourself for that or suppressing that. Maybe you wish you could speak your mind, or you wish you had a lot of money, or you wish that people cared what you had to say.
And like was a billionaire. He is, talk about the epitome. I do not know this man, actually. I need to say that. But the way that I view him, I guess, like, and how I perceive him, as someone who's showing up as authentically as humanly possible. Talk about zero fucks given. You're laughing, but that's like that. I'm flabbergasted with 99% of the things he says, because it's like, holy shit, you're saying that? Like, but that's also like, I've been told, don't say that, suppress this, do not act this way, do not dress this way, do not be this. So I see it. I recognize it myself. Like, wow, like I'm not trying to be like him in any way. It's just, I see that he is someone who speaks freely and candidly. Using him as an example, I can also give hundreds and hundreds of other examples of beautiful people that show up authentically, that he's just in the public light. So it's an easy person, but let's maybe move on, because I don't want to spend too much time on him. He's just a fabulous example of
he is. Polarity in general, I think, is a really interesting an expression of judgment, because we almost like take sides. Then immediately, like anybody who's not on my side is wrong and bad, and it's like there's something interesting there. I don't want to dive too much into it, because it's I don't necessarily know, but I thought of this. This is more relevant, and then maybe I'll have a little bit of a tangent off it. But I caught myself judging people for judging. the other day, which I thought was, I just like, I was like in it. And then I like took a step back and so like laughed at myself. And it's like, so
parenting can be stressful and even overwhelming, especially if you have an overly sensitive child. What if there was a way to better understand, guide, and nurture your child's unique sensitivity and emotional intelligence to set them up for success on their developmental journey? Rooted Rhythm's signature course, Tuned In, offers a transformational process for parents of highly sensitive, super feeling, wise, and empathetic children. You know, Dan and I don't have children of our own, but we were both highly sensitive children growing up. And we know firsthand how difficult it can be to feel and process emotions in a productive and constructive way at such a young age. Recently, having gone through the Tuned In course, we both took away so much valuable information and practical tools we could utilize to reparent ourselves and to understand how to better use our sensitive nature to deepen our connection to ourselves as well as the world around us. The Tuned In course teaches parents concrete skills to meet their sensitive kids' needs in moments of intensity, increases their ability to connect deeply with their children, and supports a process of inner healing to shift how they relate to parenting. Each module offers unique grounding and embodiment meditations, lectures full of both evidence-based and practical content, and supplementary exercises to support in the implementation of new skills. Parents who have taken this course report walking away from the experience feeling relaxed in their being and confident to parent their children in a way that both feels most true to them as a parent, as well as most supportive for their children. If this resonates with you as a parent or simply for yourself, we are excited to offer our listeners $100 off of this transformational course. Click the link in our show notes, which goes directly to the Rooted Rhythm Tuned In course website, and enter the discount code DEEP Life, all one word, to receive $100 off of the Tuned In course.
Joe Rogan had made a Instagram post, and he had like this picture of, it was like a rendering of some prehistoric animal that looked like somewhere between like a dog and a like crocodile. And he was like, it's crazy, like this thing lived 50 million years ago and it evolved into whales.
Oh, is that true?
I don't think
true.
I don't think evolution really works in that way.
Right.
In the way that we've been told.
Yeah.
But that's why I kind of wanted, we'll get to evolution a little bit. But so I'm like interested, like, you know, like the comments pop up.
Oh, okay.
And I clicked on some guy's comment to like read the rest of it. And then I start going through the comments and it was just like people fighting. It was ridiculous. But it's all just like straw man arguments about like, you're either like a Christian who believes that like God created the world in 7 days, and if people who believe evolution are so stupid. And the comments were like, oh, so this is easier for you to understand than the Bible, which is historic fact, and it's only 2,000 years old, and you believe something's 50 million years old. And then the other side's like, like, oh, you believe like a fairy tale and a storybook when we obviously have science. And it was just like, nobody like listening to anybody, nobody like trying to learn anything, nobody interested in changing their mind. And when you're broken into like these two camps, you completely miss every other option. Like, okay, both of those are wrong, most likely, but there's probably somewhere in the middle that makes a lot of sense, and we don't even get to see it because we're like choosing sides. So first I'm reading these comments and I'm thinking like, kind of what I said, like these people are all idiots. Like they're arguing with each other and neither one of them are right. And then I laughed at myself because I'm literally like, I'm judging these people because they're judging each other, which is hilarious. And then I started thinking about like the idea of what it means to be smart, because these people all think they're really smart. Both these sides think they're smarter than the other side. And it's funny because this actually came up. We were having dinner with someone yesterday and they mentioned somebody who knows a bunch of languages. It was like, oh, this person's smart. And Elise was like, are they?
when I wasn't trying to be rude, I am now very conscious about people's language and how they label.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Because I just want to go on a small tangent here. When I was younger, this is how I compared myself to everybody. Okay, is that where you're going with it?
No, but
it's because like, all right, this person is 4 languages. They're really smart.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if 4 languages. Are you saying that I'm dumb? Right. So it's like, it's not that this person was saying that by any means.
Or that the person isn't smart.
Right.
It's just to be careful how you label things, because labeling is judgment.
Yes.
And I said before, I mentioned very briefly that you can also judge people good.
Yes. On a pedestal.
And exactly what you said. So if every time you're like, oh, I only speak 1 language, this person speaks 4 languages, they're so smart, you're subconsciously saying, I'm not smart because I only know 1 language.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. See, do you just know me that well?
I do know you. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking when you had brought that up at dinner, because that morning I had journaled this same thing. And the thing that I wrote, that's why I was actually wondering if maybe this idea was in the air and that's how you had caught it. But I had written down that memorizing something or believing something doesn't make you smart.
I do agree with this, because that's how I lived my life in school and education. I had to memorize everything because I didn't
understand.
I guess and you know that from me. I would constantly be studying. I had note cards. I needed to memorize everything, because if I didn't, then I didn't know it. I couldn't, like, where you did not study, you did not like, you just were like, and you got all A's, and I was like a C student, and like, so do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Like, so I felt like I was so, and this is a wound of mine that I am still trying to heal, because I judge myself. I always try to say, like, or I've always said, like, I'm not smart. Like, I am really smart, but like not in the conventional way that people say. Like, I don't know 4 languages. I don't have a master's or a doctorate. Like, those things are important to you. That's what I was trying to get at. That's what's important to you. That's how it is a judgment. That's how you judge what smart is to you, because it's not how I judge smart any longer. I did.
Right. So this is the tangent I wanted to get on. It was kind of closer to that. It's what I was thinking about and reflecting on once I started realize, okay, these people just assume they're smart because they believe an idea, and they think that because they picked the right idea, they're smarter than everybody who picked the wrong idea. Because if you're not smart, then you'll choose the wrong idea, and whichever that is. There's these like evangelical Christian people who are like, nope, if it's not in the Bible, it's not true. This is historical fact. 7 days, there's no such thing as evolution. And they assume that anybody who believes in evolution isn't as smart as them because they chose the wrong side. And on the other side, obviously, like the science back, nope, like all religion is wrong. You're stupid. You believe in an old man in the sky, and just judging people and like creating this straw man argument and then burning it down. They think that they're smart, but they didn't do any like discoveries or research. It's like they're not out in the field looking at fossils and bones and sediment and being like, oh, you know what probably happened? Like there's none of that. Sure. They literally just, somebody was like, smart people believe in science, science believes in evolution. That's the answer. And they were like, yeah, I want to be a smart person. I pick evolution, I pick science. Everybody who didn't pick that is stupid. And we get in these weird like camps around smart. And I think it is a huge part of like the indoctrination of our school system.
Yeah.
Because just like you were saying, like they set you up to be like, okay, these are the right answers. If you memorize these right answers and believe them, you're smart. We'll give you A's. We'll put you in the better classes. We'll tell everyone how good you are. If you don't believe what we're saying and you choose the wrong answer, you're stupid. We'll put you in like special classes. We'll like make you feel bad about yourself. But neither of those options are allowing people to think for themselves or come up with ideas. So what kind of dawned on me in having this thought about like the school system and how we're being indoctrinated to believe that believing the right thing is equal to being smart or intelligent. That doesn't take into consideration the resources available to somebody. So you could stumble on the right answer. Like if somebody's really smart, I don't know what that, somebody who's like done a lot of research and a lot of like scientific studies, and they've run a bunch of studies and figured out that, okay, most likely this is the truth. And I have years and hours and all this work that goes into it. That's intelligence, because that's figuring things out, solving problems, learning from experience. And then they tell somebody, and then that person's like, yes, I believe that. The believing of it doesn't equal intelligence. It just means that you believe something. Right? So now, if you take somebody who doesn't have the same resources as the person who figured it out, they don't have a lab, they're just reading a few different books, they're piecing things together, connecting dots, they could come to a better wrong answer based on what they know, what they've experienced, what they've seen. But they're using like deductive reasoning and logic and the scientific method, not scientism. And the numbers are just wrong because their resources weren't there. The input wasn't right.
Yes.
So you can have a wrong answer and come to it with way more intelligence than having a right answer just because you accepted it or chose it or were born into a family that believed it or like whatever. Like, and I thought it was really, really interesting that like right or wrong doesn't have that much bearing on intelligence. It's sort of the process. And are you able to think for yourself and figure things out and like learn? Like being smart is like have the ability to learn, not the ability to memorize. Right. So that's my tangent. And then to bring that back to like judgment, if we're just judging someone because they didn't get the answer right, we're not taking into consideration all the work that went into it and the intelligence that was expressed through the pursuit of what we might deem as a wrong answer. So there was a lot in that little like that. All that came to me as I like was scrolling through Instagram comments and caught myself judging people for judging people. But I find it really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, maybe a new perspective to look at things through.
I think that I appreciate you bringing this into the conversation because we went off on something that I didn't expect, but not that it's a bad thing. I think that it sheds light in a lot of different areas in different ways. And the more that we can talk about our experiences, kind of what goes on in our heads, I think it's helpful. Just as we had said previously, judgment keeps us in separation.
Yeah.
And people do like that. They do like to have their normalcy of separation. Like these people are here, they believe this.
Yeah, it's comfortable to have like hierarchy and have a place. And
and it also again keeps you from looking inward and challenging actually what you believe in.
Yeah.
Because when that's challenged, then you have to dismantle so much.
Yeah. Especially like if you identify with your ideas, if you identify with your beliefs, if you identify with anything, then it's going to be challenging to challenge that. It's going to be like when your beliefs are called into question, you can either go about it like I want to challenge my beliefs because I don't want to go through my life believing something that isn't true, or the sort of like the more the ego side can be like, I do not want to hear anything that challenges my beliefs because then I'll have to like reassess who I am and my place in the world. And that's painful and challenging. And it is. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
But it's like really beneficial. And that's why like I said, like as you go up this spiral staircase, like I want to keep coming back to judgment because I catch myself judging. And that brings me down, and that's like it negatively affects me.
Yeah.
And I can't be the best version of myself and judge other people at the same time, or judge things even.
Yeah. I think, well, I don't think, I admire you very much
Oh,
for
thanks.
being vulnerable and saying these things and expressing them and wanting to work on yourself. I think I struggle a lot because judgment has been a big part of how I've related to friends and family. But that's everybody. Like it's everybody is judging, and you know how it gets.
Yeah,
like
just
kind of
like
like said,
gossip and,
kind of like you were explaining, reading these comments on
Yeah.
Rogan.
Oh, exactly,
It's just in real life. It's
Right,
like
exactly.
you're
It's the
with a
same
group
thing,
of
yeah.
people, and it's and I've really been struggling, not struggling, but observing how I feel when I get into a group of people or anything, and they're judging.
Mhm.
And I sometimes like will jump in, and then I'll be like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to do. And then I do what I've been trying to do is not even defend the person, because it's not that they need defending.
Right.
It's just observing and like, how can I bring awareness into the conversation that lends to people viewing this other person in a different light?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
Like
bring understanding to it.
yeah. So often we judge people because you don't understand, right? Anthony DeMello in the book Awareness says you judge what you do not understand. And which is also actually kind of interesting, because understanding is different than reflection, because you're judging someone and that judgment is within you. So they're showing you something that you've repressed.
Yeah.
And you don't, I think maybe, and I would love your opinion on this, what Anthony DeMello is saying is you judge what you don't understand, because that, like, you're saying, like, how could that person do that?
Yes.
Well, you've repressed it so much, but you're also not this person. So you weren't brought up the same way. You have no idea what their family is like, their teachers, their peers, what they work, what their internal thoughts are.
Right.
You know, so you can't possibly understand this person and why they're doing what they're doing. So in turn, it's almost easier for you to judge them, because it keeps you safe and in the corner.
Yeah. Especially if there's an aspect of what they're doing that you've repressed or suppressed, right? So you see somebody, and exactly like you said, is that you don't like, you'll see someone do something like, I would never do that. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't. But if you really try and think about it, you've done something of that same essence, probably at a smaller level. Or just different. And you've repressed or suppressed that because you judge it in yourself. But if you had had that person's upbringing and that person's life experiences and that person's DNA, you would probably be more free to act out that part of yourself that you are suppressing or repressing. And you would do it in that manner that's presenting itself to you. So it's like, it's another way. It's still self-judgment. It's just like, there's something I don't like about myself, and I don't understand how you can be expressing it, I think, is what's going on most levels there. But it's powerful. And it's like, every time we do that, we're hurting ourselves, and we're taking away an opportunity to see it in ourselves and kind of heal it and integrate it and love it.
Yes. When we were talking about this episode, I had scrolled through my phone, because I constantly take screenshots of amazing quotes from people, and this one had come from Instagram, but there wasn't a person attached to it, so I don't know. So I'm gonna say this.
Just say it's yours.
Never. No, I would not do that. So I don't know who to give credit to, but it says, by bringing consciousness and intention to our judgments, we transmute them into understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
And like, that's so beautifully like wrapped up in a little bow, like what we're expressing here. It has to start first with your conscious awareness of this, because so many people judge without knowing it. It's second nature. This was me 100%. And I still do it. I catch myself, but it's the patterns are still there. It's just that some patterns, and I thought you wanted to bring this up, the subconscious patterns. We can maybe touch upon that really quickly. It's literally ingrained. It's how we live. It's also like I was saying, it's how we build relationships. Like misery loves company. So when you get into it's like, and then like it just keeps you in separation. But exactly, this quote is saying, like, when you're able to bring a different level of consciousness to judgment and recognize it, feel what's going on, dig a little deeper, ask those questions, and understand that you can't possibly judge this person because you are not them. You were not brought up the same way. Exactly what you're saying. You're not brought up the same way. You don't live the same way. You live in a different country, a different state, a different, it allows for so much more compassion and understanding. That I will say, like, I feel so much better. Like, really, like it just kept, like you were saying, it kept me in this low vibrational frequency that it's like, I'm miserable. Like, so much of my life was a perpetual miserable, like, cycle, but like the judgment was a part of it. And it was like, you're so much lighter. And it's like, I meet judgment with also compassion for teaching me, like, all right, I've got this in me. Like, every day I judge too. It's just on a different level, on a different scale, and I have a different consciousness to bring to it. And it's just what's a lighter? Lighter. It's like,
it's like you were describing those situations where you're maybe with a group of people, and it's just turning into just like nothing but gossip and like trauma bonding, and like, oh my god, this is so terrible. Can you believe this person did this thing to me? I would never do that. And everyone like jumps in, and you never leave that situation feeling good.
You're right.
Like those like parties suck. And it's like, I think like it is really easy to get trapped in that and to not be able to like come out of it. As I was saying before, it's like this low level attractor field that even if you're not, like, you walk into the party and you're not feeling particularly judgmental, you can get sucked into that energy. And even if you are aware of it, like if you still like you spend too much time just like listening to it, it drains you, and it's like it really like sucks your energy. You were saying before, it was like it's useful like to bring like that kind of that compassion and understanding to the situation, and try and like, oh yeah, well, like, we don't know what that person was going through, but it's like you only do that so much.
Oh, of course,
before you're just like the annoying person. But it's like
those keep being that annoying person.
It's better than diving into it. Also, like, it really does, like, it just like drains me, and I hate it. I don't like being a part of those kind of conversations. And like, what I wanted to touch on a little bit about like the subconscious is that our subconscious mind does not differentiate between like us and other. It doesn't acknowledge that other exists. So anytime we're judging, it's like, and this is another level of all judgment, is self-judgment. Every time we're talking poorly about somebody, we are basically telling our subconscious that about us.
Yes.
And I think a really good analogy for like the subconscious, the relationship between like the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, is that the conscious mind is like the captain of a ship, and the subconscious mind is the crew. And they're the ones that need to go and run around and do all the things, and they need to clean the boat, and they need to move the sails and chart the course. And the captain is just like, we're going to do this. And he gives clear, like, a good captain is going to be very clear and tell everybody exactly what they need to do, so everybody knows their job and can go perform the function, and the ship goes where it needs to go. But if you have a captain who has like, set the course and like, this is what we're going to do, but then also is telling everybody the opposite. They're not going to know where to go. The ship's going to be all over the place. One person's going to be pulling the sail this way. So when you're saying like, okay, what I want to do is, this, and this, and we're going to be successful in my business, and I'm going to have a great life, and I'm going to find the right partner, and I'm going to start a family, and my life is going to be great. And you believe this asshole driving a nice car? This person, all they want to do is talk about their kids, and this person, like, their house sucks. And it's like, all you're saying to yourself is like, and also, like, you want a family, but your kids, talking about your kids is annoying, and this person's, and like, that's shitty, and work sucks, and you're sending mixed signals. So the crew's all doing different things because they're like, oh no, he said he doesn't like his job, and he doesn't want a nice car, and he doesn't want a family. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? And the ship just kind of floats around.
That's a great analogy. Did you just make
No,
that up?
I didn't make that up.
Okay.
That's in the NLP course that I took.
Oh, okay. But that's
really, but I really like it. It's a good,
yes.
And so it's like that helps for like setting intentions and like staying on the right path. But also once we recognize that our subconscious is always listening, and it's like, if I'm like, Jim down the street is an asshole, it's like, all right, asshole, I'm going to be an asshole. And if you're like, I don't like this car is a piece of shit, like, all right, shitty car, like, and it's all just like, it's being recorded and like held on to in the simplest terms possible. Mm-hmm. And it also, I think, works the opposite if you're like, oh, like this, like The Rock is amazing. This guy, the actor, the wrestler, like, he is so rich, he's so famous, he's so charismatic, he can do everything. You're saying, I can't do that. I can't, I'm not rich, I'm not charismatic, I'm not famous, I'm not a movie star. So you're like constantly saying less than. So it's a matter of being like, oh, that person is different. And that's awesome. I really appreciate the things that they do that are different, is such a different perspective than like putting them up on a pedestal and putting yourself below them. Because it's the exact same. If you're like, I am so much better than everybody, these people are just peasants and they need to serve me. Like, you're putting people down, but you're also like, believe that you're putting yourself down.
Yeah.
And so these things are always like playing out
in our subconscious mind. Isn't that crazy?
It is, yeah. But it also like, it becomes so powerful.
Yes.
When you realize the power of your thoughts and the power of your words and the power of how you show up in the world. Mm-hmm. And your life like instantly begins to change.
Yeah.
When you start to pay closer attention and observe your thoughts and observe how you act in groups and observe how you treat people. There was something else that you said that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
And I forget what it is.
When I was talking about what?
If I knew that, I would just go right into it.
Well, I meant like, do you remember like the part, was it when I was,
I don't know. It was recently, but it'll come to me.
Okay.
I was thinking of like a really beautiful example that I think you'll think this is interesting.
Okay.
Maybe, of like not judging.
Okay.
Is a scene from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay. Love Curb.
It's such a good show.
Talk about also someone who's like not afraid to be himself.
Yeah,
Larry
exactly.
David.
Yeah.
Another great example. You either love him or hate him. Or you just laugh and feel like that guy is effing crazy.
Yeah. This is a show, like one of the newer episodes. I remember like the first time I've watched the episode twice. The first time through, didn't really hit me. Like, I was just like, oh, that's a funny situation.
Okay.
There is the second time through, I was like, holy shit, this is like unbelievably profound. So there's a episode in one of the newer seasons when there is a like Klan rally.
Okay.
And Larry gets coffee, and he comes walking out of the coffee shop, and he bumps into like a Klansman.
Yes.
And he spills coffee all over his white robe. Mm-hmm. So you have like Larry David, who is like famously Jewish.
Yes.
And like very liberal, like Jewish guy living in LA. And then you have the like Klansman. And they have just like this beautiful exchange where neither one of them acknowledge that you would assume they don't like each other and that their beliefs are the complete opposite. And it's just like Larry's like really apologetic to this guy, and he's like, "Don't worry, like I'll get it dry cleaned for you." And they're talking about like the quality of the robe, and he's like, "Can't you just like wear a sheet?" And the guy like, "No, I can't wear a sheet. Like this is a really good robe. I need it." And it's like it's hilarious because it's absurd that they're talking like seriously about this like Klan rally and like, oh, I understand, like I need to get that clean for you. It was like such a mistake. But at the same time, it's like this unbelievably profound scene where they have like the deepest, most like opposite beliefs. And it's like, this guy clearly hates you. And he treats him like he just like spilled it on some guy's suit, or like it was any shirt that got ruined. And I just remember watching it like the second time through, and just like, this is like unbelievably profound that these two people can be completely opposite to the point where they hate each other, yet treat each other like people. They ask questions. They try to understand each other better and where they're coming from. They find things that are they find similarities that they can like bond over.
Yeah.
And they like share this moment, and they have this relationship, and neither one of them cares. But then like it's really interesting, like in juxtaposition to, we were talking about like Donald Trump earlier, and it's like, if you mention to somebody who doesn't like Donald Trump that you don't not like him, but it's like, oh, or if you mention like that you don't agree with something that Joe Biden did, it's like, oh, so you're a Trump supporter. Like you get like, it's like everyone like can't wait to like dismiss you. And then like this funny scene in a TV show, they're like is so much higher in like consciousness.
I was just gonna say,
than how like literally like the debate. So the people that want to be president are like fighting and screaming at each other over like the stupidest things, and then like this comedy show like nailed it.
I love that you brought that up. I have seen it probably twice now or so. I don't think I had the same thought, but as soon as you brought it up and started to say the scene, I knew where you were going with it, and it's such a beautiful analogy.
It is.
Of it.
It's like it's an example of like like it doesn't matter what other people believe or do or say, because they're still like, they're just life expressing through a body. They're divine. They're just another aspect of the divine, and it's an opportunity to learn and to just experience being. And we get so hung up on the little details and we judge them. And it's like every judgment is an opportunity to learn something about ourselves.
Yes. Mic drop.